meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the municipal center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the residential permit parking ordinance. Okay, who's going to take the lead on this one? Why don't you tee it up here?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. There were
Yeah, why don't you start it and then I'll take.
Yeah, Mayor. We proposing a draft ordinance, parking ordinance, in the Chestnut Street area, due to assessments after complaints by the residents in the area for multiple reasons. The proposed ordinance was reviewed by the police chief, the attorney, myself, DPW director. We sought feedback from the group of residents who submitted their concerns regarding the parking issues in the downtown. And this is felt to have accommodated within reason the concerns relate to the borough.
Anu, go ahead, please.
Jimmy, we had received a letter from the residents last week, and they were asking about, and this addresses Chestnut Street. I think they were asking about Tenafly Road and Grove Street as well.
So I was going to talk about that next. Okay, but thank you for bringing that up and reminding me. So the residents in that neighborhood did send an email in. Everyone probably has had time to read that. And a lot of questions about why we're just starting with this section of Chestnut Street for resident parking only. So I'll go down the list in no particular order. We discovered through this process that Tenafly Road is actually a 1-hour parking zone. And somehow over the years, the signs for that 1-hour limitation have disappeared. So, and so it's kind of been a free-for-all over there. And also Tenafly Road is a drop-off point for the middle school and high school to a limited degree. And so what we're going to do is put the 1-hour parking signs back up on Tenafly Road. So that won't affect the school drop-off traffic at all, because people just drop off the kids and go. Occasionally somebody might park, but it's not for long. And then we want to, and the reason we didn't look at that section for resident parking only is tied to Chestnut Street itself, in the sense that this is the first time the borough is really doing something like this, where we have a section that's resident only parking. And frankly, we want to see how it goes. We would rather not legislate for 4 blocks in every direction and have unintended consequences. We're going to do this one piece at a time. So that Tenafly Road will have the 1-hour parking, and we'll enforce that and put the signs up. Chestnut on the north side, which is where the residential houses are, will be resident only parking for particular hours, as you can see in the draft ordinance here. And on Grove Street, north of Chestnut, we've got a lot of commercial vehicles parking there. And what we're doing is the police department is having conversations with the businesses that own the tow trucks and things of that nature to kind of change their parking behavior in anticipation of us likely doing something on that section of the street once we have some experience with the north side of Chestnut. So it's a multi-step process, which hopefully will move this ordinance forward and get this in place as reasonably quick as possible. The residents in that letter did raise a number of issues going back about 8 years or so. And the businesses, 2 of the businesses that were there are no longer there. There's actually 2 businesses now across the street, which are wholly different operations. I have spoken this past weekend with both of those businesses, and I told them that the parking across the street is not going to be available for them to use. They completely understand. They're fine with that because they have parking on their side. They have parking in the parking lot. There's parking in the town lot that is next to the soccer cage. So we're taking some baby steps forward. And, our goal is to address the residents and everyone else's concerns, and we'll see how it goes. Council members have other questions about this? No? Okay. Everyone, are we introducing this ordinance tonight or no? Is it being introduced at the next meeting, right? All right, so, if the council has no questions or concerns, we're gonna tee this up for introduction at the next meeting.
Can I
Okay.
just ask
Of course,
a
go ahead, Lauren.
I'd like to reach out to the residents on Chestnut and set up a meeting for a month from now, see how it's going.
Well, we can certainly, pardon me, we're probably
It'll
need
take
to
a
meet.
month for it to be in effect.
Yeah, right,
Well,
right. It's good.
I just don't want them to be out there and not have a response, so let's
Yeah,
get
this will
that
be,
calendared.
this will, Jimmy will communicate with them, and this will, if it's on the first reading in May, the second reading, I believe, is May 24th, then it'll be able to go into effect immediately right after that. Okay. All right, good. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Little League field. Did you actually put this on the agenda, or do you want my comments? Jeff, go ahead, please.
Do you want to comment first?
Yeah, sure. I guess John, what I was gonna say, just so, been working with a couple of the council people. First, congratulations to the Tenafly Little League. We had a parade last weekend, this past weekend. Super awesome, great weather. Bird. I was there to see the first pitch. Oh my goodness, it was like pretty legit.
One of my friends came up to me afterwards and said the pitch was a little low on the inside. I just wanted to get it in the
First,
general direction.
congratulations to Tenafly Little League for that. Second is, we've been having, a couple of us on the council have been speaking with the Tenafly Little League to talk about, obviously, there's some challenges from a budgeting perspective on the Little League field. What we wanted to do is speak, that we actually have a joint use meeting coming up with the board on May 10th. Thank you, Omar. What I'd like to do is, let's see if there's something we can do. I know Jamie from the rec department will be coming to the next meeting to share. She's done some work around the growth of attendance of our kids in the town and the utilization of the fields. We need fields. They need help with their fields. I think that there's something that can be done there. So just wanted to update the council and feedback for others as well. But we'd really like to bring up at this May 10th meeting, joint use meeting, around what we can do to take advantage of.
Lauren, then Jeff?
So I actually had the pleasure of speaking with the head of the Tenafly Little League, Dan Cohn. I don't think anyone can hear me. And Dan and I discussed possibly allowing open space funding, which is used and appropriately designated for recreation, to be given over to the Little League field. So that way baseball and softball, which is a recreation sport, can use it. Now, I'm also a softball coach. We are desperate for field space. And to have another viable field for softball to use other than Sunnyside, which does get beleaguered by rain, would be excellent. So I do see a partnership here. I'd love to hear how the Joint Use Committee discusses it. But I had asked our attorney to see if that would be an appropriate use of open space. So I'm going to ask. Well, I would like the answer.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
So I've been working with Jimmy to get more information on that. We have confirmed
Okay.
that it is not borough-owned property.
That's
so
correct,
That
right.
would need to be some kind of a co-grouping with the Board of Ed. It's their property. As to whether it would be general budget funds or open space funds, we haven't had the opportunity to figure that out yet.
Jeff, so I'm going to comment on that, but first Jeff and then Dan.
So I think half of us have met with the president of the Little League at this point, and myself included. And as a former director of the board of Little League, I'm very familiar with the field. And I think what Dan is suggesting, just so everyone understands what work is needed. What work is needed, number one, the building that's there has some problems with the roof. The two dugouts definitely have some problems where there's a lot of leakage and they need repairs, which might, I'm just throwing out there, since those are smaller, be a wonderful project for future Eagle Scout project. It really is about the right scale and scope. But more importantly, because of shortages of fields that Councilwoman Dayton referred to, what they want to do is not change it, but to add from what's considered a 60-40 field, which is for basically fourth grade, give or take, in that range. They want to add bases and pitcher's mound going outward so that they can convert it to, keep it 60-40 and convert it quickly to 70-50, which is the in-between size. It's not the regulation size, but it's what most sixth graders, for example, fifth, sixth graders play on. That would require digging up the outfield a bit, putting down a lot of clay, regrading it. And so when we talk about the buildings and the regrading, I think the estimate that Dan says about $50,000, which I will tell you, as one who was involved for many years with Little League, is well worth it for that field, but the problem being that's board property. I would suggest, I did tell Dan that I would mention this, and I believe I mentioned this to you, Mayor, floating the idea of, with the board, of maybe they have no use of it, maybe they'll sell it to us for $1 under the McKay land grant. The land is to be used for recreation or education, which is why the borough owns a portion of it. So if we can work out a deal with the board, then we don't have that headache of whose land is it. And then it would be ours. We would be able to use it. I throw out $1 because that's a reasonable amount. But the fact is, if they charge a lot of money, then they're just charging taxpayers from one pocket to another, which really doesn't make sense. Anyway, so that's the long and short of my conversation and my recommendation after having talked to Dan.
So I'll have a little report on that after Dan goes.
To build off that, actually, what we did with Geisinger, the dollar land lease or something like that, where we bought it from them for $1.
No, we did
Something
not
like
buy Geisinger, so
I forget how
we
we did it.
provided approximately $600,000 to 50% of the cost of upgrading. I think it was 600,000 or a little more to upgrade Geisinger. And in return for that, we got written guarantees of field usage. I think 40 or 45%. We provided
Yeah,
like 40 or
something like
45% of the money, and we got 40 or 45% of the time on the field in return for that. That's how that worked. That was not a sale.
I forget.
That's how
It was
that
so long
transaction
ago, I
worked.
just don't
Yeah.
remember how we did it.
Yeah. So just to follow up, so I've had conversations with the Board of Ed on this concept. And I don't want to put any words in their mouth because they're not here right now to have discussion in public. We're putting it on the next joint use meeting as a topic. And in the meantime, the Board of Ed is doing their homework in terms of, what do the deeds say? What do the grants say? How does all that work? So that if everyone decides to move forward with this, we'll at least have an understanding of, all the legal answers will get worked out. Yes, Lauren.
So from my understanding, the Board of Ed does not have this on the capital plan for the next 10 years. We raise open space funding from taxation. Our residents actually pay money to have money set aside for recreation. That is exactly what open space is. To me, if we are allowed to do it legally, and we're looking into that, this is such an appropriate project. We have, how many families came this weekend? Over 500 between Little League and softball. I know softball is growing exponentially, and we really, like I said, need field time. This is so forward-facing, and it's, we raise, what do we have in open space now? Over $3 million, Jimmy?
2.8.
Right.
2.8, right.
We have $2.8 million that we are tasked with actually giving back and using for our community, and we are sitting on it. So again, I think that even if Board of Ed says no here, I think we as a council should consider an avenue to get this done for our residents.
Cool, next up.
Any other topics? Okay, on that. All right, outdoor dining and seating.
So this is.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Right over from the last meeting, just as updates. I have to press the button or is it working?
You're not on.
It's push the bolt, push the stick,
Press it, hold the button.
flip the,
No, no, underneath it,
Flip
it.
you have to
Here.
flip the switch on.
Just use mine. Go ahead.
Okay, I think we're on now. So this is a carryover, just to continue the discussion. Omar, Jimmy, and I have been in contact with the building department and talked about this, and we do have the ability through the state having extended the guidelines from outdoor dining from the COVID period, the executive order, it was put into a statute, and I think we had already updated you on at the last meeting. However, there's certain items that need to be submitted in an application form, and they may not have been adhered to, so to speak. I think it was more of just things getting blocked off by request. We need the diagrams to come in, so just to let everybody know that there will be a request for the diagrams for showing where the tables are, all those types of things, at least through till the end of November. And that, again, gives the council time to decide whether you want to then revert back to what your outdoor dining ordinance currently stands at, or whether you want to amend that. And I believe there had been at least the discussion of amending to drawings versus architectural renderings for placement of tables to that extent.
Go ahead, Adam, please.
Yeah, so definitely agree with that. Most importantly, from a safety perspective and making sure that the police chief and DCW, they see that. I would ask, I saw an older version from last meeting. It was pretty onerous. So it was a good number of pages. Like there's a whole thing on. Question is sort of like, why are you doing this? Or like, what food are you going to serve? I feel like that's a good example.
Red tape.
If you're a pizza place, you're probably
Serving pizza.
So I like the idea. Definitely want to do it from a safety perspective. I would ask that whoever's putting the first proposal together, let's try to do as little as possible. Again, we shouldn't have to pay $100,000 for artistic renderings when, listen, the spot right in front of your thing, that's where I want to put 3 tables. So as long as we can do it as easily as possible, that would be fine.
What I should have also added was that we'll probably have a resolution on for the next meeting, just to memorialize what is required by the terms of the COVID legislation for the time being. And that'll be by resolution, which everyone knows ends on the end of the year. So it'll probably be dated specifically to end with when the statutory allowance ends. Because obviously through the COVID guidelines, folks that have a liquor license get the ability to serve and extend their area. That's not going to last past November unless additional legislation comes. That their
You're
original
recommending as many events as possible.
events are separate.
So the bottom line is we need to clean up the paperwork
Yes.
with the,
So there will be a
res-
resolution.
and then we need to adjust our ordinances and have that conversation. Yes, Lauren?
So I just want to raise the issue, Mayor and I have been discussing this, and Jimmy, and I think Adam got involved. There is a dispute on the usage of the tables and chairs. From my understanding, it's a donation from the downtown committee. Is that correct? So does the downtown committee have ownership of the table and chairs?
No.
So how,
Downtown committee sort of raised the funds, distributed the tables and chairs, and those people that originally got them, they took ownership.
so I'd like to actually reimagine that, because there's businesses who, for the very first time, will have outdoor seating that need tables and chairs. There's businesses that took 40 tables and 40 chairs and 8 tables, and some that have 1. So is there any way that we can redistribute better, our tables and
So I've
chairs?
spoken to, I speak to
Mhm.
everybody. I think second or third grade, I remember like seeing the thing is, so I don't think we could, take back something that we gave. It was during a time, yeah, some humor, some spots.
I just didn't know, I didn't know we gave it.
So I don't think we gave it. So we can give back. This was a time at the height of COVID. Appreciate all the residents that donated money for this stuff. I think it is.
Is there going to be another push to raise tables and chairs, for tables and chairs?
This is the Andrew Till out there with Tenafly chairs. you could get them to do another fundraising. But
We're getting off topic a little bit.
anyway,
Well, I just want to say, for those for those restaurants and businesses that want outdoor space, that feel like they can't have it because they weren't given those tables and chairs, I want them to come to the borough with that application and not be deterred because they're not getting that table or chair.
at least half the businesses, I'm thinking quickly, half the businesses didn't get tables, chairs, they bought the tables and chairs themselves. And again, it's a pretty, I look at it positively and I say thank you. Town has opened up some space for them to use. I think if they have to invest in, you see the businesses that are doing well are putting up flowers and putting up nice stuff. I think it's in their best interest to invest in.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Just a procedural question for Wendy, what she brought up was, I went into the downtown and right now those outdoor seating spaces are actually there. So if this is something where procedurally we had needed to tighten it up or whatever, where does that leave us now with the stuff that's already placed, out?
They'll still have to come back and give their certificate of insurance, give the diagram of the placement, allow for building department to go through and give it a once through if they haven't already. But there's documentation we need to get on file.
I have one more on this. I'm sorry.
No.
Good post of that.
No.
Is that it, Julie?
It's now. Now, November, you'll revert back to your ordinance, which is why between now and next, let's say February, is when you'll want to make sure you've got your ordinance and your application procedure shored up again for whatever the vision is for the future.
Lauren, go ahead, please.
There was a request from some of the businesses to take down the tent at Angelique, and I know it hasn't been done yet. So I just wanted to follow up on the status.
When do you want to address that?
It has not been asked to be taken down. That property is leased out. They can put it up under the previous guidelines. It went up just like any other business that had asked for extra space. So it's within the extra space that they had asked, but I'm sure it'll be revisited when the application comes in and to make sure what the spacing is. But there's never been a requirement for one person to be allowed and one person not. So it's just a matter of the spacing.
Yeah, that's like subject to upcoming negotiations. Right.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to,
So just in, so, like you said, downtown outdoor dining, as you would expect, 50% of people love it, 50% of people hate it, 50% of people want more of it, 50% of people want less of it. So if I could just ask Jimmy, so again, everything we do, we share first with the police chief and the DPW. That is first, second, third most important elements. There's Paulie's Pizza, so if you can picture on the other side of Washington, they're looking to use one of the spots in front of them. And then equally on Railroad, if you can picture Tenafly nails, they wanted to move that. So just as a reminder, working with the police chief and DPW, the way Railroad is done is sort of 2 spaces on, 2 spaces off, 2 spaces on, 2 spaces off, from a safety perspective. That's why we did it that way. And I think Tenafly nails wanted to move something, which would break that 222. But if I could ask Jimmy just to, the police chief says, let's change everything. Obviously, that's the council, if they're open to it. I want to optimize for everybody. But I would just ask if you could ask the police chief and DPW, can we actually put something in front of Paulie's? I appreciate it's cost from something, so it creates some confusion.
we'll
And
do
then
some
we'll
homework.
figure it out. So if I could just ask you to follow up with the police chief.
You're welcome. Okay, let's go on to EV charging grant. Julie?
Okay, so this is a hyperlink. You see it's for proposal to apply for a grant. Councilman Park and I are on the EV charging subcommittee, and this would allow us to apply for a grant that would help fund 4 chargers. These are like 2 back to back, if you could picture them, like, or, yeah, Yeah, I'm getting 4 in the post office parking lot, and then 2 along the railroad by the movie theater area. So this would allow us to apply for a grant. And Councilman Park, do you have anything more to add?
So this
This is just some of the work we're working on, We're trying to bring some charging to the town.
Questions from council members?
These are additional.
This is additionals, that's an RFP that is still being worked on. This is a grant.
These are also the fastest ones, the DC fast charger ones. No, higher.
3.
2 is kind of your standard. Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, Councilman Park, these are 2s.
I think that number's wrong. But the highest one, the highest one.
And then is this, are these the ones that?
Nope.
No.
These, so the engineering company was gonna go out to get 3 quotes.
This allows us to have them go for the grant. And who is this, the plug and pay grant? Is that the name of this one?
DEP one.
DEP.
Pays to plug in.
This is separate than the other thing we're working on.
No, I think as a borough, we need to get with the program with electric charging. Jeff, please go ahead.
And just to be clear, the grant would cover the cost of wiring in all the electric? Okay, just don't want a cost that we don't foresee. Let's make sure they're included in the grant and the 3 bids. No surprises, because it's a great idea.
Associate delivery and activation fee, warranty for maintenance.
Yes, we tried to list that as our parameter.
Behind the meter grant.
Okay. Is council in favor? We're going to add this into the resolutions this evening. Okay, thank you, Julie and Dan, for putting this together. Okay,
We asked Susan to come up.
well, hold on a second. Next on the agenda is a 2022 capital plan. Susan, step up to the microphone, please. How are you tonight? Congratulations, you're on the hot seat.
Again.
So I gave my recommendation, which is to, as part of the capital plan, to use some of the funding from the American Rescue Plan money for an engineer to look at and review the downtown revitalization. And the other part of this is to, review the rest of the capital plan that was already discussed to move forward with. Does anybody have any questions?
Who has questions? Julie was first, and then Lauren, please.
So Susan, thank you for all your hard work on this. So I know we have people in town also listening in, and I myself would like just the clarity one more time. What is the American Rescue Plan Fund's purpose?
So when they first came out with the rulings, it was interim, and it was not as broad as it is today. So if you wanted to fix a road, let's say it had to be with the culvert repair.
Before you go on to the specifics, what's its actual purpose?
The
And I mean by like,
purpose is to
yeah,
improve infrastructure, to look at broadband, sewer repairs, items like that. And overall, it could be used for mental health. It could be used for the downtown revitalization because it provides an improvement to infrastructure in the town, mental health, outside activity.
can I just stop you for 1 second? Because I'm doing very broad on this.
Okay.
If it was between 2 parts, okay, which is was its purpose to stimulate an economy? Like, how we all, like many of us got a few $100s in our pockets each month during the height of COVID. Was it to stimulate or was it to plug in holes because we weren't getting taxes during COVID? What was its purpose?
Okay, it has nothing to do with the taxes. You can't use any of these funds to offset taxes or debt. It was more or less to help with any revenue loss that may have occurred throughout businesses, throughout the town, even to residents, employees, any type of situation that occurred for revenue loss, which could include hotel revenue loss, any of that. So that's mainly what it was for.
Thank you. That's what I wanted, kind
All right.
of idea. Thank you.
Yes, Lauren, please.
First, I want to say thank you to you and your entire team for preparing our budget. For those of you who are watching the audience, this is a budget discussion now about what should and should not be in our final budget. What I would like to know is a couple of items that were outstanding that I'm not seeing, and if you could just confirm whether they made it in or out, because I can't find them. First thing is, we were improving the website, and we had investigated whether website money was going to come into this budget. What was the final on that? Because I don't see it.
So I listened to the tape, the last tape, and
Mhm.
I, I didn't hear that get approved. If anybody has any questions on that, maybe we could revisit it. I just want to make it very clear that we do have, as in the budget is the operating budget. The capital is like a supplement to the operating budget. And that capital plan, it's a plan, is right now anticipated with this budget, meaning that we're anticipating the use of approximately $4.3 million. Whether we do capital bond ordinances to incur future debt or not, the plan is really fine-tuned when we do those ordinances, when you vote on a first introduction and then second reading. So if there's anything, you just talked about charging stations. So then I sit there and I think about the grant and I say, well, how much money do we need to offset that grant? I might see something in Jimmy's report about an architect for something else. Those funds need to be appropriated and it should be in capital. So can they be done later? They can. But right now, what we discussed and approved is in this plan. If something is left out, can it be modified? It can, because it's pretty generic as a supplement in the operating budget. That's our anticipated plan. All it says is various improvements.
I'm going to keep going just through my list to double check them. I had asked for some improvements to our playgrounds for our families. We are missing a piece of equipment in Froggy Park. I asked for a substitute for the playground equipment. I don't see it.
20,000 you asked for.
Mhm.
Again, listen to the tape. And I did not hear anything about approving it. It came up. And so again, if this governing body says that we're discussing it now, if this governing body says they want something put in, I could modify this because we're not doing a capital ordinance for various projects tonight. We could do it on May 10th and adopt it on May 24th if we want to. Now's the time. If any changes are going to be discussed, now's the time to do that.
I'll just, I requested benches and tables throughout our parks and playgrounds, playground equipment, landscaping to beautify our town. I requested youth center furniture. I requested, the Pride bench. I requested better planning for Resco, bathrooms in Walnut, parking lot O, River Edge median. All of these things are not in our budget.
Well, the Pride bench is
Website.
in.
The Pride bench is good, and thank you
Yeah.
for that. I will say, as I look through this budget, we are internally spending money, internally. We are not outwardly resident-facing spending money. And I think the American Rescue Recovery Funds are the right thing to spend the money outwardly. But I will say, I had wished that those other things got into our capital plan. They're residents that use our public spaces, and we're not taking care of those public spaces.
Okay, Manu, go ahead.
Yeah, and Susan, just a question about, if you can't use the American Rescue Plan money to reduce taxes, but
That's right.
if you use the money towards a capital project that reduces the tax burden. So for example, if you're using it for something that's on the capital plan, that'll reduce the burden on our residents.
Okay, so
Would
how
that,
how-
just a question,
Yeah.
would that be considered a stimulus in a way? If you're reducing a resident's tax, reducing their burden?
Okay, so to answer that question, when we do a capital ordinance, capital bond ordinance, okay, we could do capital ordinances and get money from other places, like the American Rescue Plan or municipal open space, where we're not going to incur additional debt. When we do capital bond ordinance and we bond for it and take out a note, then in the operating budget, you will have to either pay interest on the note or a bond, and also bond principal. So contingent upon what you borrow would be in the operating budget and then have to be part of our operating costs, and taxes would be part of paying towards our operating budget.
Right. I mean, I get that, you know, you have to set aside 5% of the capital.
No, it's 5% for the down payment,
Mhm.
and then you have to pay back the debt.
Right.
But I don't want to consider it like a stimulus.
No.
It just offsets what has to be raised in taxation. The higher what you have to pay back,
Mhm.
the more you need to raise for taxation.
I'm just saying, you know, if you look at it kind of as, you know, if you don't have to pay as much, you know, you could look at it as a stimulus for, because you're not spending as much, right?
So it's long-term.
Right. But-
That,
But especially when we have a capital plan that over the past 5 years has gone from 1.5 million to now close to 4 million. Could,
or
could,
2.5.
from 2.5 million
Yeah.
5 years ago
Mhm.
to 4 million now. Where last year it was 5 million, this year we brought it down to 4 million. You're talking about this, you know, constant increase, and eventually we'll have to pay the piper. We'll have to, you know, as residents, pay back that principal. And right now the principal is being elevated every year. Is something that we should, that if we reduce the amount that we're putting into capital, that ultimately will be better for the residents from a fiscal point of view?
Okay, so I'm going to explain a couple of things that are happening. One is, of course, anytime you incur debt, you have to pay it back. So we have some debt out there, over $13 million, which we are going to bond this year. We will probably include some of this. The 3.5 for Hurricane Ida, we're expecting 90% of that back from FEMA monies. So that's going to not be part of this. This year, we're at 3.6 million in our capital plan. So everybody agreed up to 4, but it came down to 3.6. Therefore, the down payment is more than sufficient in the operating plan. You have the money, this money is outside of the American Rescue money. One of the things that the governing body should know, which I'll say right now, is that we are going to go out to bond this year. And the reason why we're going out to bond, just so you know, and everybody else on the governing body knows, is because we're going to have a drop off in principal next year. And this could be almost a neutral type of situation, contingent upon what we have here, except the amount of bonding is greater than what I've bonded for before. The last time we went out to bond, it was like 8.5 million. This time it's going to be a little more. I think we went out to bond in 16 or 17. So this is a good year to bond, but your statements about if you could put some of this money towards the plan, yes, you could, but this has to be decided by all of you because the rule was expanded. Right now, my recommendation is to get an engineer so that we could look at this plan and use the monies under the American Rescue Fund, money that was awarded to the town, and have oversight for all of these projects, multiple projects that are under this big umbrella for the downtown revitalization.
Yeah, but
Manu, then Lauren.
and just, you're talking about, the American Rescue Plan and the engineering costs for the downtown revitalization portion of it, which includes the 290,000 that we've already passed an ordinance on.
Okay,
But if we do nothing more at this point for the 756, the remainder of the 756 that's left, we would do the 290 plus the 90 for the engineering costs so that we get the right, we know what the actual amounts are supposed to be. There's nothing that's stopping us from using the rest of that money for other things, as identified on the spreadsheet that you sent out, that there are several other items on the capital plan that would be eligible for this, right?
okay, yes. So the idea is, first of all, we'd have to do, we could do either competitive bidding or an RFP to secure an engineer, okay? That has, we have been speaking to and writing to the Division of Local Government Services, and they have advised us that we need an engineer. There's a lot of reasons why we need an engineer, because there's so many projects. Some of them, the borough in-house can get quotes for, but some of the ones that are over the bid threshold, we can't get quotes for, we have to go out to bid. So the engineer is definitely something that we really need, and it should come out of the American Rescue Funds. But yes, to your point, then we would have used 290,000, and we would use another 90, maybe more, maybe less, for an engineer. But that would be very prudent, because then we would know going forward, we'd have oversight on any construction projects and also know the costs of what we're doing.
And we can structure it so that it's not the 90,000, but just whatever projects we ask them to consider, right? I mean, the 90 would be just, your ballpark estimate. But
Well, I don't know, I think, Wendy, we would need your help with this too. We know have a lot of guidance, and we've been researching a lot of things. But I see, when we go out for this, we really have to know what we're going out for, what's expected of the engineer, and what projects would fall under that. And the term, according to the DCA, could be up to 5 years. We have to spend this money, I think, by 2026, is it?
Yeah.
2026, December 31st. And we have to obligate it, encumber it by the end of 24. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but right now, today, I'm hoping that this governing body has a consensus of getting the engineer so we can move forward.
Lauren, then Manu again.
See if I can explain this to the public, because the public's listening and I want them to understand it. Your 6 council people made a budget, and in our capital plan, we took out all of the downtown improvement plans because it was told to us and explained that we are able to use federal funding that we received from COVID, the American Rescue Funds, and therefore we didn't have to put it in our traditional budget. We actually could use these funds and do our downtown planning. We then spent an entire year with BFJ planners and came up with what the planners recommended are the 10 best things that will improve our community, our downtown. Major projects that would need traditionally to be in our capital budget and our capital expenditures, and we took them out of our budget and put them aside to have these funds be utilized. What your councilman is now asking is to use those funds for other things, so that the downtown improvement wouldn't be in our traditional budget, in our capital plan, and now would not be in our usage for the American Rescue Funds. And so those items would again be kicked the can down the road, be postponed for development. What Councilman Michaels and I would like to propose, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, is that these funds are used this year to improve our downtown this year, that we actually get this work done by not just hiring the engineer to oversee it, and that's a great idea, Susan, for 90K, but actually designating the funds for the projects that we need. Branding and marketing to attract our businesses, streetscapes, beautifications, improve our alleyways near, the downtown, improve our parking lots, improve our crosswalks and our distances, improve our open space, our traffic flow, our lighting, our outdoor dining areas. Decide whether we want to put a median through River Edge Road for traffic and safety control and beautification, improve a Resco Park. These are things that our residents use every day. If we take these funds from the American Rescue Plan and we now decide not to use them and just to hold them or to use them something internal, we are defeating the point. We have literally removed all of the work that we've done all year to listen to our residents, to do studies, to make sure that our residents are heard and what they want to see in our downtown. We are removing it from the capital plan, and now Councilman Menon wants to remove it from the American Rescue Funds, and therefore no downtown work will get done. I implore my council to listen to your residents. They spent a year with BFJ, a year, creating these projects. Let's fund them and get them done.
No, then Jeff.
I might remind the councilwoman that we have already set aside out of this year's tranche of 756,000. We have set aside 290,000 for the downtown revitalization. That was agreed to by the council. We actually had a discussion, and the discussion included us going up to 250,000. We then exceeded the 250,000 after our agreement on this table. So I should remind the councilwoman and the public that we have already encumbered, if that's the right term.
So it's not encumbered, it's been allocated from the American Rescue Plan into capital and appropriated as such
Right.
for the
So,
projects that were discussed among the body to move forward with.
so we've agreed to 290,000 of the downtown revitalization.
And so, Lauren, I want to make a point here. Right now, today, this governing body needs to decide on an engineer
I agree.
and allocate, if everybody agrees, funds towards that before we even think about moving forward, because we need to make sure these quotes that the planner gave us are accurate quotes, because we can't commit funds to a project that we really don't know what it costs.
But
Okay.
Susan, wait, I just want to respond.
Hold on, one at a
wasn't
time.
done.
I'd like to,
Susan, what you were going to say, and then Jeff is next.
can I respond
Okay.
because she's talking to me directly?
She's talking to all of us, so everyone
Right.
needs a chance to speak.
So,
Hold on a second, but hold on. Jeff hasn't had a chance to speak yet.
I actually want to hear Councilmember Dayton's response.
Go ahead then. He cedes his 2 minutes.
I don't see that I yielded to the.
She yields.
She wants to respond to whatever I say. I agree we need an engineer, but I also agree that $290,000 does not get our downtown improvement done. It gets a small piece of it. And when we were presented with our full plan, this council, we met in weekends, we met in seminars, and we said, what's our most important thing to budget? Resident-facing items. Downtown improvement was #1 for so many of our residents. And so again, that's such a small piece. How much, what are we getting, 1.4?
We're getting, okay, so I am not questioning the money, or should you be, of what's in our reserve right now. We received 756,000. We allocated 290,000. You guys allocated 290,000. We have 466 left. That money is readily available. But before you can even think about spending that money, I'm not saying you can't use it for the American Rescue Plan. The questions that came up at the last meeting was, and before it was more broadened, the government provisions under the final rule, the eligible uses, we already checked out. Downtown revitalization would be eligible use. Then came up, I think Jeff and Vanu brought up, what other eligible uses are there? I was asked to complete this. I completed it. I stated what other eligible uses are. All I'm doing is saying, what's the eligible uses and where do we go from here? So right now, today, this, I think the only thing you can do is say that you're going to use more American Rescue money towards that. And then the governing body has to decide if they want to use the balance for downtown or the news bringing up about using it some other way. I thought that you guys said the capital plan could be up to 4 million. It's at 3.6.
But nobody here is going to put the downtown improvements back into the capital.
Let
Okay,
the
so
mayor go.
yeah, we're going a little bit in circles. Jeff, go next, please. And I think Manu, you want to speak.
So to the point, and for people out there listening, we do listen to the public. This was a forum for how we wanted the downtown improved. That's not the only thing. We met as a council, what was it, December or so of 2020. We had a number of priorities. Public safety was way up there. And, public safety is one of those things. We're sitting here taking out a capital. We're not using any of the American Rescue Plan for the cameras, for example, which I would say right now would be a very high priority for our public because of the number of stolen cars, the ability to track that. I'm listening to residents right and left. This is a real concern. I listened to your concerns about the parks. There are a lot of competing interests. The problem for a council as a board of directors is to make tough decisions. Now, to that point, a couple of years ago, we got a study. It would cost us $30 million to repave our roads because at that point, that was one of our top priorities. And we said we can't spend $15 million this year, $15 million next year and be done with it. We said that this would take a long time, that we would allocate $1 million, and we're doing that and working to microsurface and do other things to preserve the roads so they don't fall apart as fast. I said at a prior council meeting that that was part of my vision for how we deal with the downtown. We are dealing with numbers that are astronomical. I don't think people realize, because that was not part of the public discussion really, of exactly what this is going to cost. And a lot of these are to be determined, and a couple of them even say in the report, high cost. High cost meaning 500,000 starters. My calculations were looking at everything, 5 to 10 million, all of which is important to get done. But I think there's two different visions. One vision is kind of like what we could have done with the roads. Let's spend $30 million and get it done. The other vision is this is going to take some time so we don't crush our residents. We have other competing needs for the things like this is, very forward facing to residents. So are the cameras for the police vehicles. Believe it or not, so are snow plows, which we balk at, replacing our plows, our trucks. But I'll tell you, if our roads don't get plowed in winter, that will become the number one priority. That's very resident facing. And I think the way we define resident facing has to be really careful. We're a service industry. We're not a goods industry. And I think this idea of we're in the business of goods when we're in the business of services, we provide services. And when we cannot do that any longer because we don't have the money, or we are taxing people an incredible amount to get it done that they don't want to live here anymore, then we will fail to do our job. So I think that's what we need to think about as we're looking at this money. Yes, it's important to get the downtown revitalized. I am all for it, but I am not sure that the idea of year 1, year 2, year 3, we're done, we've spent $20 million, we will never recoup that. And we're not going to get American Rescue funds next year to pay for the $5 million or whatever that it will cost in phase 2. So we need to start thinking now, how are we going to handle that? And we're not doing that very well.
Manu, then Lauren, please.
Oh, by the way, one last thing. I
Go
do
ahead.
agree, engineer, so that we can get a handle of these costs, so that we know what we're looking at. Because right now we have no idea.
Manu?
Yeah, I agree about the engineer, I'm for it. I want to make sure that we structure it properly, but I'm for putting the engineer in that. Jeff Councilman Grossman stole some of my thunder by saying that the project, the downtown revitalization project as it is not a 1 or 2 year, or it was never stated, even in the BFJ proposal, as a 1 or 2 year project. Okay, it was stated as this is a project, and they said it could be over many years. And I think, we lose sight of the fact, we want everything done really quick and, get it over with. But, I think we need to take a step back once in a while. We're looking at almost, and I think I said this before, that it's almost like lipstick on a pig, where you've got issues, the infrastructure is crumbling under you, but you're willing to, put something that's forward, resident facing because it's glitzy and there's, some color to it. We do have to, use some of this for relief, for taxpayer relief, while we also look at it for growth. So in that vein, let me give you a couple of direct ideas on what I would use the money for this year. I agree with Councilman Grossman on the 50,000 for the mobile, the recorders, and then the automatic license plate readers. That's the 55,000. I believe we need to have. I believe we need to have 175,000 for the HVAC so that our employees are not coming into hazardous conditions to work, because they are also part of the resident-facing workforce. If they're not able to do their work in a forget about comfortable environment, something that's just something that they can deal with. It's not worth dealing. The residents won't be happy and they won't be happy. So I think those are three concrete ideas to use it for that's on the Capitol, and I would recommend using the American Rescue Funds for that. There's other things like the fiber optics that we wanted to put in. I think that's something that you had included as one of the items, and the SCBA packs for 75,000. So these are all valid uses, and I would, based on, how the 90,000 and all the 290 and all of that fit in, these are where I would like to use the remainder of this year's tranche.
Adam, then Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you see, everyone has an opinion. That's the beauty. Every year, elections are up, and you get to put the people in that you believe best represent you. Just to set the stage for a minute. The first thing is, as much as I'd like to kind of rule the world, the way the budget works, the municipal budget is 20% of our taxes. We make taxes zero, we're still going to be paying predominantly what the school system sets as taxes. We charge 100% tax increase, it's only going to be 20% of that. So the first thing is, fortunately or unfortunately, this is the tail wagging the dog when it comes to taxes. The second thing is that, and we're very lucky for this, we have a CFO, we have an auditor that are incredibly conservative. And that's exactly what you want as residents. It's exactly what you want as a council. And after speaking with the auditor, they are comfortable with the number that we set as our rough budget number. Actually, we actually got, it's probably the wrong word, but a slightly more aggressive after speaking and realizing where we are with the rates and everything. So that leads us to what you want to do with our residents' money, right? It's your money. It's all public record. You'll see the budget, the capital budget in particular. And what I believe you'll see
and everyone gets to make their own decision, is maintenance. And it's critical, and it's important. We need to fix the roof on the library. We need to fix the boilers. We need a new police car. We need a new fire command vehicle. Absolutely. And I will tell you, there's actually nothing on this budget that I'm against. That's why, as part of the process, I thought it was something we had to put in. What I do believe personally is that we need a balance. And yes, the roof needs to be fixed in the library. But we need a new park bench. Yes, the boilers have to get fixed. I'd love another ball field for our kids. And that's where the balance lies. Is it 50-50? Maybe not. Is it 60-40? Maybe not. Is it 70-30 or 80-20 or 90-10? Maybe not. But please look on your own. And right now, this is actually 100% zero when it comes to growth. Now, the last point, we've been speaking for much time. So literally since last November, the public had the council saw the recommendations. You'd go back to actually the summer when the downtown stuff was being spoken about. And we've been speaking about this for a while. The planners came up with their call. And the thing that's very important, where I feel the goalposts have been moved on us, is not a single dollar is in the budget. Now you may ask, wow, we've just spent all this time and not a single project, not one project is in the capital budget. And that is because we as a team, with Susan's, our CFO's direction, it is clearer, it is easier, it will be higher success rate because it has to go to the state, that let's all bundle it as one thing. And that's why we all decided, for those that believed in the downtown, again, not a single project is in the capital budget. I feel now we're now moving the goalposts. Let's not put it in the capital budget. Actually, maybe let's not put it in the American Recoveries either. And that's what I'm hearing. So my ask, I do not have the right answer. My ask is, we have seen now for many months what these 10 projects are, 15 projects, and I am totally open 100% for this council to go one by one, looking at the projects and look at the ones that they think we should do and things we shouldn't do, and make sure those projects gets pushed. I agree with what everyone's saying. It shouldn't be all, maybe it's not all the money, maybe it's not all of the projects, but I feel like we should know, up or down vote, on which ones we think are right or wrong. And my concern is, again, last comment is, not a single project is in the budget. That's it.
Lauren, go ahead.
Adam, thank you. Just so the public knows what these 10 projects are. These are not projects that we came up with out of the blue. They are things that our engineers have looked at. There are things that our professional planner has looked at. There are things that experts have looked at. They've estimated the cost. They've estimated the time. Some of them need studies like engineering or traffic. And some of them are ready to go tomorrow, and we could break ground on them once they're funded. What I had hoped my council would do was fund the 10 projects. And we talk about public safety, and that's the number one thing these 10 projects accomplish. The first project we're going to look at is River Edge Road, where traffic accidents occurred, resident deaths occurred, our school children are crossing, we have public busing there. It needs safety, it needs traffic, it needs beautification, it's very industrial feeling. That kind of project will not get done overnight, but kicking the can down the road and saying, we're not going to fund it today, we're not going to do what these experts tell us, and we're going to just fund, $55,000 worth of cameras, which we could afford in our taxpayer budget. It's so short-sighted, it's such bad planning. So we have a River Edge project, we have an Oresco Park project, we have a beautiful park in the center of our downtown that our planners told us is underutilized. Our residents can make that a wonderful green space, close to our businesses, outdoor space, close to our recreation. That's a great project for us to consider funding. We can get that done right now. We can get that done this year. We can improve attracting businesses to our downtown with marketing and walkability and wayfinding and branding. That's easy to help revitalize our downtown. We can improve our bike and walk safety with our crosswalks and our lighting. We have 4 traffic signals in here. And if you ask anybody who rides in our downtown, they will tell you, please fix the traffic lights. It's in the downtown projects. We want to use the American Rescue Funds to do this. And Adam and I will be outvoted tonight. And the public needs to understand that. We will be outvoted tonight. It is short-sighted. And someone's going to tell me, we don't need to consider doing these for our residents. We're going to go fix the internal HVAC system within this building. I can't imagine, after the 2 years of COVID that our residents went through and having to rely on our businesses, a better use of our money than to support our downtown, to make sure it's thriving for both our commercial and our residential centers. And if you want to talk about offsetting taxes, as Adam says, if you want to talk about actually making a dent in your taxes, the best thing we could do is have a thriving downtown and collect tax revenue from commercial businesses. Well, we collect, what'd you say? My last point is that we represent you. We have listened to you, different aspects, but I don't know anybody that came up to me in the past 2 years and said, I really hope we get an HVAC system.
Jeff and then Julie, please.
All right, I don't even know where to begin.
Go ahead.
I mean, as Councilman Park sort of commented, stage aside, he's correct. We do not collect anything but property taxes from downtown businesses with the exception of hotels.
Well, we have a
But-
family hotel right now.
But, I mean, the sad fact is, and I wish it were otherwise, but if a business doubles their business tomorrow, that helps the state of New Jersey, which then siphons money into communities with greater needs than us. It does not translate to property taxes. And even when it does, and look at what's happened with our town. We have this year, and Susan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're anticipating $700,000+ additional in property tax revenue. Around that amount. We are spending that and then some. We're way overspending. I did not, if you listened carefully, I didn't say, let's not invest in our downtown. To say that that might be an interpretation is absolutely misleading and wrong. What I said was, and I'll repeat it, this will be the 3rd time I've said before this council, that I look at things as we can't always spend a large amount in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. We need sometimes to look at, all right, maybe River Edge is the priority for this year. Maybe Piermont will be 2 years from now. Let's see what we can afford, what we can do. If we try and do them both, and remember, when you said we need 4 traffic lights, there aren't 4 traffic lights in here. There are studies for this. There are studies for this because we can't do without a study. We don't know the cost of it yet. We know the chief has said that anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million when he was talking to us previously about this per light. And that's fine, but I said before, we need to think about what the budget is looking like, not just this year, but next year. And how do we get all these things for our residents without crushing them? And so if we want to be resident friendly, especially after COVID, the last thing I want to do is bury our residents. And yes, we're only 20% of the taxes, but that's our 20%. And our job as a board of directors is to be responsible and not sit there and say, well, if we were doubled it, if we went up 100%, that's not a big tax increase. That is. Even a 2%, 3%, everything we add, we're adding to our taxpayers, to the people out there who elected us to do our job, to provide the best services possible without crushing them. And I think, honestly, what I'm listening to, we're failing at our job. You're complaining that we don't have benches and things you want. We could, but
Vote them down.
no, I would want them, but we're putting money in studies. We are spending money on engineering. We're saying studying this, that, and the next, which is fine. You have to do the studies. I'm not saying you don't, but once you make that decision, then you have to live with the consequences. And the consequences are there's a finite amount of money out there. And Councilman Michaels is right. Our job is to sit here, we sift through this, make decisions, but it's a finite amount. We can't have it all. As much as we'd all like to, as much as we'd love to make the public happy, because in the long run, the public pays for it. It's their money, not ours.
So my,
Okay, Julie's next, then Laura. Yeah,
my question,
Council President,
Yeah.
let's call it.
so Julie is the last one, and then I'm gonna ask, you have another comment? One last comment. Go
my
ahead.
question for Susan was this. So tonight you're asking for, within this budget, to use RFP for the engineering part of the downtown, right? So if,
Yes,
oh, yeah.
instead of shaking my head.
Okay, so am I to understand then, because the RFP has a slightly different timeline, right, than our operating budget, that, sorry, the American Recovery, right, the ARP, right, okay. Woo-hoo, okay,
American Recovery, American Rescue.
American Rescue money.
Yeah.
That is a slightly different timeline. So the reason I'm asking you is to Councilman Michael's point, we've got 10 projects. Is there any particular reason why I wouldn't hear, why this is not being discussed like another time, right? Does it,
Yes.
like tonight, what are we doing is you want to wrap this up?
Okay, so to Lauren's point, to all of your point, it's like we're in limbo. I want some direction as to move forward. I can't move forward in accordance with the Division of Local Government Services. They specifically told me you need to get an engineer for the downtown revitalization for many reasons, which I agree with, just to make sure that the quotes are. I believe we really need to do this and now. So I would like this governing body so that you can possibly move forward on whatever projects you want to do, to commit to using the American Rescue Fund so that we can get an engineer to assess all the projects under what the planner had stated to us. Lauren, I recall you being concerned about some of the quotes that were in that plan. We need to make sure that those quotes are really good. What if we overcommit ourselves? That's number one, but I don't know. So the engineer is like a necessity. Now, with the other plan, I know that at another meeting, everybody on this body said you'd go up to 4 million. We're at 3.6. So you could either decide, Mayor, I wish you would just get a vote on two.
That's what we're gonna do next.
One on, are we going to commit to the 3.6 the way it is? The second one is, are we going to use American Rescue monies for the engineer for the downtown revitalization? If we're not going to commit the whole 3.6, then we need to extrapolate what we're not going to commit. And then we could decide on some of these things later.
All right, so
Just-
you want,
just to
hold on a second, hold on. So you want, wait, okay. You're looking for two consensuses tonight, one on the 3.6 and one on the engineer. Okay, Lauren, make your comment, then I'm gonna go around the table and ask for a consensus one way or the other.
And again, Susan, none of us want to, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to vote the budget unless I know some downtown improvement is going to occur. So to me, the budget without any of the projects that I want to see go forward is not a good budget for our residents. And I just wanted to respond to something about that we are crushing our residents. This is the only time in history that our borough has received $1.4 million from the federal government. What is it?
1.5.
$1.5 million from the federal government. This is the only time in history where we can, instead of imagining these projects, actually start or get these projects done. There are things in here that are 100,000, 200,000. And when I questioned the costs, I spoke again with the engineers at BFJ. I spoke again with the professionals that we hired. And they gave me quotes. They did their work on these quotes.
They gave you physical quotes in writing.
They gave us stuff. They gave us information that allowed me to realize these quotes are not just out of the blue. They are realistic numbers based on what they've seen these projects cost in other boroughs. I did question it. This is why I feel comfortable now actually taking the federal fund that we've used to not crush our residents and not have to put it in the capital plan and actually put it in American Rescue Funds for downtown. So again, if this,
But it's important, she said she's gonna vote down the budget.
well, if the order of the voting needs to be American Rescue Funds before the budget.
Engineering consensus is coming first.
Actually, it's a question on the engineering, just clarification. You're saying for additional engineering, 90,000. That, really quick, we have, as part of the 290 that was already passed, 60,000 is to solicit an engineer for cost estimate and plans. And then there is River Edge Road mobility enhancements. Oh, that's in the current request. But engineered drawings. So is the 90 on top of those requested engineering?
90 is on top of the 60, and hopefully that's a good number. That's just an estimate. Where I can, this is another reason why I need to get this done, so that I
Okay.
can see, is the engineering cost going to be 140? Is it going to
Right,
be
right.
160? Is it
I
going to
got
be?
it.
I don't know
All right.
what it is.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I'm going to call for a consensus on two issues here. Just for 30 seconds, I'm going to say, you know, the councils and mayors long before us, 20, 25 years, maybe even beyond that, I've been getting news clippings from people who were residents who were showing news clippings in some of the newspapers where these conversations about revitalizing downtown were going on 30 and 40 years ago. And it's been something that all the councils and mayors have been hamstrung with because of the money. And to Julie's original question that started this discussion, you know, this is stimulus money, this 1.5 million that we received. And I think the best thing we can do with that money is stimulate our downtown with it and kickstart it and improve it. And so that's all I'm saying on that. So everyone's clear that I think this is the right thing to do. And I'm going to just go around the table and ask for a consensus. And the question is, do you support the use of the, of going ahead and going out for an RFP for the engineer for the downtown development? Dan?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
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 Padu?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that's 6 unanimous. Wonderful. Okay. Clarity on
There
that?
are fewer competitive
Okay,
bids.
so your question, the second question is a consensus on the 3.6 million?
No, I want to do the American Rescue Funds first.
That's.
What do you mean, do?
Over. We can't.
But again, if I don't have a consensus that that's how the money's going to be used, it affects my vote on the budget.
The budget is
Okay.
not anything to do
Nothing
with,
to do with the American Rescue money.
Exactly. The budget has nothing to do with fixing up our downtown. That's the exact point.
Time out.
6 is a amount or 3.6 per wing?
it's 1.830, which is an ordinance that you've already had a first reading on. And for the temporary capital plan, and then the balance of that is
For these projects that we did out.
for the other projects totaling 3.6.
So,
Right now for our capital.
For the capital budget,
So-
correct.
so, and the problem I have with that is once we lock ourselves into the 3.6, then we won't be able to change the amounts that are in there. And, you know, to Councilman Dayton's point, you know, the American Rescue Plan funds, we need to know whether we can remove some of the items in the capital to put it into the American Rescue Plan. Use from the American Rescue. So if you're saying 3.6, we're kind of forcing ourselves to be stuck in what's currently there.
Okay, so if. you-
And I want to be able
if
to adjust it.
Body wants me to prepare with bond counsel an ordinance so that we can move forward on this capital plan, I need to know, yes, 3.6, or no, not 3.6. We're going to extrapolate some of these items for future looking at. But I don't really recommend taking some of them out that the police department or some other department that safety may need. However, you could still use at any point in time the American Rescue money, because it's in a reserve for any projects, including the downtown revitalization or something else, a road or something else that may come up during this year. It's available for our use, whether it be in this capital plan, another capital bond ordinance, or the downtown revitalization. But if they say the 3.6, I will have an ordinance done by the next meeting, the first reading, which is specifically in here. If there's something that this governing body wants out, you have to tell me. If you want to move forward with the 3.6, I need to know.
Okay, so
It's chicken and egg here.
I did make a couple of recommendations.
Okay, so, but we spent days and days on going over the budget. We can't just arbitrarily on the fly now start taking money in and out unless we're starting from scratch again. And
That's not true.
I don't want to take money out. What I want to do is get a consensus that the American Rescue Funds will be used in a certain way.
okay, so the chicken and the egg is we have to get the engineering done. So we've got unanimous consent of the council
So,
to
can I
move
just
forward
give
on the engineering. Yes, Dan, please.
There's no open space plan. It's a trust. She just said it's a reserve. You can't plan for it.
I understand that. I want an understanding what my fellow council people would like. If they're not going to fund any of the downtown
We're not talking
revitalization,
about that. That's not on the discussions. The
right,
capital
it's not
plan
in
is
the capital
discussion.
plan, then I want to change the capital plan to put some of those projects
Yes,
into
come into
capital.
capital right now.
Until you get an engineer.
Right.
We've been advised strongly by the state, if we make mistakes on this, the US Treasury will pull back our grants.
So Susan, two of these projects,
Okay, So-
projects, we have an engineering
Jeff,
from
then I'm
Mazer, from Colliers.
Calling the question.
go ahead, please do.
That's what I'm doing. Calling,
Okay, so-
under Robert's rules, I'm calling the
So the
question.
question, I'm looking for a consensus on the $3.6 million capital budget. Dan,
Yes.
Jeff,
I agreed to it previously as a number. I agreed to it now.
Lauren,
Abstain.
No.
Adam,
I agree to it because I believe in the whole council discussed with space money and this council will use those funds, we're discussing it, why it's not in here to grow the open space stuff, the anti. I'll say yes.
Julie?
Yeah.
Okay, next item on the agenda.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, administrators report,
We have a
update.
2-minute break.
Pardon me?
I have a 2-minute break, please.
Take a 2-minute break. We're going to do the administrators report in your absence, but go right ahead. Let's go ahead. We'll go slow. You could use my mic, yes.
I just wanted to, a couple items that were, that I had to add to the report that I want to make highlight of. First, thank you to the scouts for the project at the dog park, the photos, the work, incredible, very impressive. Thank you to them on all their hard work for 3 phases of upgrades at the dog park. So a couple items I want to highlight. Just a brief update for Oresco Park. In, I believe it was 2020 or 2021, the borough received a grant from the county to do upgrades to install walking paths at Oresco Park. We just received today the proposal from the engineer that worked on the first phase of that project. So we're going to evaluate the proposal to be able to determine the amount of the project, if it could still be within budget, or if revisions need to be made from as previously presented. So I believe at the next 1 or 2 meetings, we'll be able to come with a recommendation for that and the source of funds for those projects. The benches and trash receptacles for Hyler Park will be installed by May 6th. CSX has confirmed, or the New Jersey Department of Transportation has confirmed a pre-construction meeting for the upgrades at the railroad crossing at River Edge and J Street. That pre-construction meeting will take place next week. At this point, we do not know a timeline of when it may begin. We're hoping early, of course, as soon as possible, but we anticipate early summer. And details will be
Thanks, John.
made to the public.
Good game.
once-
Good game, boys. I know. I
Details are
saw.
made,
I didn't see it. I heard.
Please mute yourself out there on Zoom. We appreciate it. Thank you.
So once those details are received by the borough, we'll release it to the public. Also additionally, at the next council meeting, we'll be bringing forward after councilor's review of the proposed CSX lease of properties, parking spaces. So that will be discussed among the council. Bliss Ave, we are still on track for September opening of the culvert and the road. We're anticipating to receive a quote for the work this week and anticipating to be approved at the next council meeting or considered at the next council meeting. And then another item, the borough has for many years had a shared service agreement with the borough of Little Ferry for registrar services. The employee through Little Ferry is retiring and had submitted her retirement to Little Ferry for the end of May. Little Ferry had indicated that they would like to continue the agreement. Through their search, we're not able to find a candidate that would be able to accommodate the schedule and would now like to terminate the agreement pretty much at the conclusion of her employment or their employment at Little Ferry. I do believe this is something we could bring in-house for a improved service and a cost savings to the borough. And that will be discussed at the next council meeting. Then happy to address any questions.
Jeff, please, then Julie.
Go.
So first of all, thank you for the updates. I appreciate. On the Oresco Park, as I recall from a conversation we had offline, that we don't have allocated matching funds for that from the grant. So I know we talked about the possibility of open space funds, but I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware and where we're at on that aspect of it.
Correct. And just to add to that, Susan and I did look at previous year's budgets. Unfortunately, it didn't seem that any money was allocated for that project at the time, which would have to be, if we wanted to move forward, which had to be done soon. Again, we received a proposal today. We're going to evaluate it and hopefully the total project amount was still within budget with the grant award. So more.
The award was 33 from.
Correct. So
So it's at 66,000. If we can't do a path for 66,000, we're in the wrong business. Yeah, I think we'll be able to with some nice additions to make it very friendly to the community. The other question I had, so I was reading in your report about the McCandless room because I had raised that issue of could it be rented out for private use, and you have all this recommended upgrades that came in. Does that mean that we're not using that room now because without these upgrades we can't use it?
Not for that purpose. It's used for general kind of, well, mainly by the recreation department and just as a general meeting room here and there. A lot of the kind of those programs, recreation programs are held in there, small practices, gatherings, scout meetings, Girl Scout meetings, things like that.
So if we're talking small parties, I'm not sure how that leads to hundreds of thousands of dollars of upgrades are needed between what's being done now and what we could regulate in terms of the parties and get revenue from it. Yeah, I would appreciate if we could
Sure.
see how we're able to use the facility now, but wouldn't be able to under those circumstances.
no problem.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you. Oh, and any, just if you can do an update, because we're closing in finally on the Roosevelt Monument lighting project.
Yes. So the most recent update is that the lights that were recommended to use, they were in stock or supposedly in stock with the vendor, the supplier. They had not shipped in time as they were supposed to. And the architect on this project had sought to see what else they had in supply that was similar. There was an upgraded version of the lights at no additional cost that were in stock, which were ordered. They were shipped Friday, and as of today, this afternoon, there was no update in terms of the tracking status. The good news is that all the underground wiring is done. The minor landscaping was done. There's additional landscaping that will be done. So that's all anticipated to be 1 or 2 days worth of work. So I don't anticipate not being able to complete this by the grant completion deadline of May 31st. But yes, a small delay with shipping and material availability.
That, I appreciate it. And I want people out there to know the importance of this. This is on the national list of historic monuments. I think it's our only monument in town nationally recognized that way as far as monuments go. And it could be, and one served as really a central point for our community and could be used for a lot of community events. And so fixing it up, making it a focal point right next to downtown would be awesome. So thank you.
Yes, I thank you, Jimmy, for prepping a very thorough report. I want to also just echo what Councilman Grossman said about McCandless. I think that's a great resource and we can, really have it used. So we should go forward with that. I did just want to note that on your report, you talked about future projects about the Magnolia Street Avenue sidewalk.
In the engineering report.
In the engineering report, I know not everyone has access to seeing what we're seeing. I did just want to know if you could talk about that. I'm very pro sidewalk everywhere. I'm a walker. So, but I remember about a year back or so that we had a very cursory description and the person was talking about just like adding a sidewalk and was like removing a bunch of trees. And I just wanted to make sure, what are we looking at? Is this a little bit more in depth?
It's just a cost, it's a project. I forgot what the estimated cost was for this project. Off the top of my head, since it has been. It's saying there was, it was, I could research it, but it was something, it was essentially pretty much if they wanted to burn the cost and see if that's something we wanted to tag up with the school on a project to complete. Also I think there's a historic designation in that area, so it adds a little bit of difficulty for an area that has no sidewalks existing. So that's something we could revisit. I could look at the cost estimate again.
I'd be curious about that. Then the other thing is, while I have you, is I wanted to know if we could get an update for Councilman Parks and my subcommittee about where we're at with the electric vehicle charging RFP specifically.
So the RFP is under now. Has been recommended to be reviewed for technical specifications. It has been trying to obtain a quote from our engineer for reviewing that and the technical side of it. They were given the proposal as it is in draft form to be able to prepare a proposal to review it for technical aspects.
Just if I may jump in.
Yes.
I'm not an expert on electricity, on specifications for charging stations, so it just needs a once over by an engineer for the actual technical specs. And that's where it is, waiting on the proposal.
Can our goal really be for next meeting? I mean,
Yeah, I'll
call them
ask.
back. It has been so long.
Yeah, I mean, it was given to them this week, but I'll of course ask to try and get it for next meeting's consideration.
Thank you.
And sorry, just real quick also, and it was mentioned before about FEMA and reimbursements. We also received reimbursements from Storm Isaias. So just a huge shout out to everyone internally who does work on the reimbursements to FEMA, OEM, the police department, finance, DPW. It's a tremendous amount of detailed work that goes into this. And it takes years to receive these funds back. So a huge thank you. It's a huge undertaking to do. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is correspondence. We have one piece of correspondence from Mr. Kuvas and neighbors of his concerning 150 Leroy Street. And Jimmy, if I'm not mistaken, just so the council's aware, as of today, there are no building permits applied for or pulled, or tree permits applied for or pulled for 150 Leroy Street. So there is nothing for us to review. I'm not sure if any of the, if Mr. Cubis or his neighbors are on the line right now, but we're going to go into public comment in the meeting, and they can, in a minute, they can ask questions. But typically with all these site plans and new construction, there are stormwater mitigation plans that have to be done, tree mitigation plans, let alone the site plans. And so until we have some details from the owner of the property, we don't have really any details to respond to there.
Mayor, I'd like to request, as we typically do when someone's waiting on correspondence, that they speak up during correspondence.
Yeah, well, we're going to do that. We're going right into correspondence now. Okay. All right. So, excuse me, in public comment, I mean. All right. So we're going to go into public comment now. Audience members wishing to speak will have a 3-minute time limit to address the governing body on items of the committee of the whole agenda. Large groups are asked to have a spokesperson represent them. So we'll start with this, this first part, the correspondence regarding 150 Leroy. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak about this first, that would be, now is the time. Omar, see, let me know if anyone's raising their hand, please.
No hands, Mayor.
Okay, is there anyone in attendance here about 150 Leroy? No? Okay, so let's go to general public comments on items on the committee of the whole agenda. Well, come on up, Christine, please. We'll start with the audience here, then we'll move to.
Christine Evron, 39 Leroy Street, a lot of comments. Chestnut Street, was any provision made to make sure that Stop and Shop parking wasn't going to be impacted by this change? All of these residents have driveways, correct?
That's correct.
So we're giving them their driveway and the residents parking on the street?
Well, we're not giving them the driveways. They own the driveways.
But I mean, that's the total parking available.
Right, so that's going to be available to residents in that neighborhood only.
Okay, I mean, it just seems, it may be fine with the two businesses that are there now. I don't believe that they're high drive-by, but if there's another gym or something, I can see that being a real problem, especially for the grocery store parking lot. That always gets overflow when we take parking away, and I'd like you to watch that. EV stations, if you could not put them on Railroad, you're required to put a designated electric car only spot next to these stations. If you could put them at the post office where you have 4 spots for each of the 2 chargers, so that you can have 2 spots that are designated and 2 others that could be used. And the other suggestion from the electrician I had look at it was the CVS municipal parking lot, the one behind CVS, because again, you can get the back-to-back cars and it's just more efficient for traffic processing. Whereas if you put it on Railroad, you're taking away shopper parking and designating it for electric car only. A problem only for a couple of years, most likely, but still, for a couple of years, it will be a problem. I was really interested in all of the downtown improvements. I love downtown improvements. Getting the list of 10 items is impossible. Nobody knows what the 10 items actually are. I was a little surprised to hear Oresco Park was being considered. That's a brand new park. We considered it for active use. I was in favor of active use. The high school students came in, made a presentation with ping pong tables made out of concrete. They had water fountains, they had Wi-Fi stations. There was a complete active use of that park proposed. There was a lot of community involvement. They decided on a passive use, which obviously is Chamber of Commerce president. I would prefer active. The town decided that we're going back just a few years after it was built and reimagining the use of that park. I find it really troubling. I also find it a little concerning that we have park benches and trash cans in Hyler Park now that are functional. We have not determined what the branding is. What are these new trash cans and benches that have been purchased to go in Hyler Park? They can't possibly be consistent with our branding because we don't have our branding yet. We have, speaking of branding, our most brandable thing is our railroad station. I only saw $35,000 to improve that, and the numbers I heard were 150,000. Where is that money coming from? You've got to pay attention to our primary iconic train station before you brand anything else. I would like to see what these 10 items are in a list somewhere that people can read. It just hasn't been available anywhere. I've tried Oprah, it, nobody knew. No, that's the list of 14 or 15. We don't know what the 10 are. As far as downtown parking, everyone, all the restaurants are aware of the form that is on the line. And yes, it has an additional question of what are you serving or some extraneous question. I can't imagine it's worth anybody's time to change it now. Everybody's been given that form. They're happy with it. They know to get in their certificate of insurance and their diagrams for sidewalk parking because I distributed this before the barriers went out. Those barriers are hurting a lot of our businesses and they're not really used by other businesses. And we're again taking parking away that is needed by all the businesses. Can you please consider charging the businesses for this free space that you're giving them so that those who truly need it, and there are some businesses that can take great advantage and the residents love to come to their outdoor dining, Axia and Brasserie are two. Let them pay for it. There are a lot of others that they're saying, well, he's got it, so I should have it too to be on an equal footing to compete. Meanwhile, he said, well, if they're getting it, of course I want it. And that's the only reason if they're asking. I think if you put a little dose of reality in, are you willing to pay for it? You'll get a more reasonable balance of who gets barricaded parking and who's taking away parking from other businesses because it does hurt. And it's one of these 10 improvements, the Sunday closure of Washington. No, that one, right? Thank you. In that case, I'm not speaking of that.
Thank you, Christine. Anyone else here in the council chambers that would like to speak? Please come up. You just please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
22 Isms. I'm a member of the Friends of the Tenafly Library. I'm their treasurer. And we've had for 3 years talked about the squirrels that have lived in our room. I would implore you to fix the roof. I've been in Tenafly 44 years. My taxes were $1,800 when I first bought my little house. They've now close to 14. A lot of houses pay a lot of taxes. I'm not sure where the money goes. I think this is a municipal building. I think the borough needs to fix the roof. So that's on the library. I also serve as a trustee for the senior center. I retired 2 years ago and somehow I pick up all these jobs.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it.
And, you know, the senior center does a fabulous job. I mean, the director is outstanding, but we're looking to upgrade the building or to build something. So I would ask that you put it on in your thoughts that we address the senior needs. I have for years heard about the rent. I don't hear a lot about seniors. It's a critical need. It's a tight building. I think the building currently is old school trailers that were purchased from Stillman School for $1 or something. They clobbered together. And I don't know how old they are, maybe from the 80s. They've
Yeah.
served their purpose. They were great, but it needs to be repaired, whether it's a community center or whatever. I don't know. I just thank you all for being here, volunteering, doing your job. I appreciate it.
Just so you know, so there is money in the capital budget for the roof of the library.
Thank you. That will.
You're welcome.
Mayor,
Thank you.
you may want to know that we're aware of
What?
the senior center as well.
Right, but we don't want to, we
Yeah,
don't want
thank
to
you.
overpromise and deliver. Okay. Thank you.
Asked me to add the ad hoc to do the senior center council and that, so hopefully.
The senior center is on the radar. So it's on the radar, but the roof of the library is in the budget. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering.
I think they're at least going to get Wi-Fi in the senior center, right?
Okay, Omar, now, any other members of the public here who'd like to speak? I don't think so, right? Okay, Omar, do we have any hands out there on Zoom? Would like to speak?
Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. I see no hands, Mayor.
No hands right now? Okay, we'll have more public comment later on. Okay. Any questions or comments or changes to the resolution? The charging stations are going at the end. Counselor?
Correct. So purposes of numbering the resolution to authorize the engineer to move forward with the grant application will be added to new business, and it would be resolution R22.
Okay. R22-151. Let's go. Okay, that'll go at the end. Okay, any other questions about the resolutions? I see none. We're going to move on. Any questions about the two public hearings? No? Any questions about the minutes? Anyone have, you have questions about the minutes? You have a question for the good of the order, go ahead.
I have a question on the public hearings.
Okay, so that's what I told for. Go ahead.
Okay, I
Then
want
we'll
to,
move
I
on
want to ask about the county open space application. This is the application to put a skate park on the old pool club property. Correct?
Well, this is an application for a grant.
For a grant,
For a grant to make improvements at the.
correct, including a skate park on the center of the property. Is that?
What are the options?
I don't know as to where,
There's about 8 different items, of which the
There's ADA
$200,000.
compliant raised flower beds. There's,
facilities, bathroom.
yeah, making the bathroom facilities functional, like improving dog park area, and of course, moving the skate park there as well, and putting more tree plantings, and there's many things there. Lighting and possibly things with the cameras, yeah.
Any other questions about the public hearings? No? Okay, for the good of the order, Julie?
Yes, I did just want to first by starting thanking you, Mr. Mayor, for promoting the Trashathon event so well.
Oh,
This
well-
last weekend, we had a very successful Trashathon on Sunday. And I want to also thank the DPW for collecting the trash bags from all the participants. I've got some great pictures to share with everybody. We picked up so much garbage and it was a real success. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Glad it worked out well. It's always a great event. Okay, moving on from old business, from good of the order to old business, second generation SGARs.
So at the last meeting, Councilman Dr. O'Connor had brought this forth about passing a resolution in order to ban the use of the second generation anticoagulant rodenticides. I got that. And so just as a brief update, we're ready to go with it, except that, as everyone knows, the borough does have a contract out currently with the company to do rodent control, and they have not been able to provide the ability for an alternative yet, so we still need to look into it a little bit more, but we anticipate the resolution, at least banning for our borough-owned properties, will be on the next agenda.
Okay, so Wendy, just a little bit of clarification and walk me through it. So the borough-owned properties, we hire this company that doesn't offer the alternative. So between now and next time, how do we solve that issue?
So Omar's been in discussion with them to look for an alternative. They don't currently use another alternative. So if they're unable to, it may require us to go out for a new contract and potentially have to either split services of what they are doing otherwise, or, I'm speculating here. At the moment, right now, we're just working to see if Omar can work with them to find an alternative and see whether there would be cost implications as to use of an alternative.
And also, I just want to add that it's probably best if we do find a alternative contract for the pesticides, that we bring that before the Board of Health for them to review it before we move forward with the contract. But that's, something we.
Oh, okay, so by next time's meeting, though,
Mhm.
we would still be able to proceed with a resolution or not?
We would hope to, but we'll keep you informed along the way.
Okay, because we're not going to have a Board of Health meeting between now and then. So if there's
June
anything
6th.
that,
I believe it's June 6th.
yeah, we meet less frequently. So if there's something I need the Board of Health to review and sign off on, I could do that via email, right?
Well, so I think Omar was saying if you have to go out for a new contract, that new contract should be reviewed. So at least we would hope to know whether or not there would be a need for a new contract. And let's take the baby steps and see where we go from there.
Do you think enough? The following up with the pest control people that we currently have, maybe they'll think more carefully about if they can offer an alternative?
I'll defer to Omar on that because he's
So
in the conversation.
Sure. So at this moment in time, I asked if they do provide any alternatives, and they expressed to me that no, they do not. That's the rodenticides that they do provide at this moment in time. And at this point, if we wish to move forward and try to go with another company that offers that, then we have to find out those details.
So then can I, given that reality, can I ask then that Omar is maybe directed to look at other places to information gather by the next time? Because I'm concerned that Group A or Company A, they've already told us they don't offer it. We know that we have this other town that had banned it, Allendale.
So
Have you had the opportunity to talk to them about who they do use?
Sure.
what they-
So I reached out to Allendale to see what they do offer. I'm still waiting actually to hear back from them to see how they have their pesticides and how they handle their rodent control over there. So I sent an email out last Friday and also on Monday just to see where they are with the status of that answer. So hopefully, if by tomorrow, I could probably try to find out if I twist their arms.
My only concern is that we were like revisiting that, we're going to find out in 2 weeks. Oh yeah, the first place doesn't offer it, like you just said. So
Well, Omar is actively pursuing the different options. We just wanted to keep it on the agenda to let everyone know that it's still at the top of the list. It's still being explored and just giving the update on it. And certainly regardless, we'll give you an update in 2 weeks, no matter what.
all right, thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn to the regular meeting?
So,
Second,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So we're going into the regular public meeting. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, the notice requirements have been satisfied. The meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center, and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Hallmark, can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Dayton.
Here.
Councilmember Grossman.
Here.
Councilmember Menon.
Here.
Councilmember Michaels. Councilmember Dr. O'Connor.
Here.
Councilmember Park. Here. Mayor Zena.
Here. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 29th, 2022 and April 5th, 2022, please?
So moved.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Got that, Omar?
Yes.
Okay, Counselor, any revisions to the agenda, please?
Edition of Resolution 22-151 under new business.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Our resident sees the
Excuse me?
library facade and roof replacement project under there. I just wanted to point that out. The library.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Ruben?
Okay, thank you. Public comments. Audience members wishing to speak will have a 3-minute time limit to address the governing body, and large groups are asked to have a spokesperson. Is there anyone member here in the chambers who would like to speak? Going once? Okay, hearing none. Omar, anyone out on Zoom who would like to speak? Please raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment or have a question. Excuse me? Can't hear what you're saying. Thomas is trying to make a comment? Thomas, you unmuted?
You see that?
I don't see a Thomas here.
But it's on the TV though.
Oh, I mean, that's under me.
Omar, do you have a question? Would you like to?
Your hand down.
That was Alma.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, Omar, what's up?
I see no hands, Mayor.
Okay, so please step up, just identify yourself, and then ask the question.
Christine Ebron, 39 Leroy Street. What happened to the food trucks through residential areas? Is that not being considered anymore?
It is being considered, it's just not on the agenda yet for tonight.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make the comment as a resident that while I put up with a food truck or a ice cream truck coming through because kids can't really get downtown by themselves, or at least not in today's age. And construction workers really can't take time off to go and travel downtown and get back to the work site in the length of their half-hour lunch. Having a coffee truck go through town just seems to be adding extra traffic that that's not what I see Tenafly suburban life is like.
Okay, thank you. Omar, any other questions out there? Anyone look like they have their hand raised?
See no hands, Mayor.
No hands? Okay. All right, so thank you, everyone. I'm going to close public comment time and ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Did I hear a second?
Second.
Could I have a roll call, please, Omar?
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to the first public hearing. Ordinance 2207, bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements. Omar, can you please read the confirmation of publication of the ordinance in the title?
Okay, so this is
2207.
2207. Okay, this is ordinance number 2207, which was published in the Friday, April 8th edition of the record. It's a bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements by the Borough of Tenafly, appropriating the aggregate amount of $1,830,150. Therefore, including a grant in the amount of $206,000 expected to be received from the state of New Jersey Department of Transportation, and authorizing the issuance of $1,742,000 in bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereof.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor for any public comment on ordinance 22-07 only. Is there any member of the public in attendance here who would like to speak on this topic? Is there any member of the public out on Zoom who would like to speak on this topic? You can come back to the microphone, yes.
Ebron, 39 Leroy. Does this have the 10 downtown revitalization
No.
things in it. Can we get a list of those 10 items somewhere?
Sure. If you have a question about this.
There's not, so there is no formal 10 list. A subset of the council was here, and we discussed the 20 list and we took out 5 or whatever the number is. There's nothing formal. What is formal is the report that is actually on the website.
Right, there are problems.
You can take mine if you'd like. And this has all the information, and that is the latest information that this council has aligned on.
All right, so give her a copy and let's move
I have
on.
a copy of that.
Okay, we're in the middle, Christine, we're in the middle of a bond ordinance discussion. Thank you. Okay, Dan, would you like to make a motion, please?
Sure would. I move to pass and adopt. Nope.
Thank you, Christine.
Oh, and on second and final reading, ordinance 22-07, and that notice of same shall be published according to law.
Can I have a second, please? Omar, can you please conduct a roll call?
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor, Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Right there, Omar?
Yes.
Okay. Bergen County Open Space Application, R22-149, submission of a grant, Open Space Trust Fund grant. Jimmy, would you like to give us a brief overview of this?
Yeah, no problem, Mayor. The letter of interest for the county grant application, we adhered to the deadline as part of the grant process and application through the county. This is part of the process as per previous county grants, as part of it having an open hearing. And soon after, there's a deadline, I believe I forget it off the top of my head, an early May deadline for the submission of the application itself. As part of the process, there's resolutions, advertising in the newspaper that have to take place first, along with this public hearing. So this is, the appropriate time for members of the public to speak on this item.
I'd like to comment on this one.
I think we're going to have comment in a second, but hold on a second. The public has to come first. All right. I'm going to open the floor for public comment on the open space application R22-149. Are there any members of the public here in attendance like to make a comment about this?
This is for the skate park on the pool property?
So just to clarify, this isn't for a skate park. This is the equivalent of a lottery we're applying for here. Maybe we'll get the $200,000 from the county. Maybe we won't.
The plan is for the skate park.
No, there's about 12 items on there.
Less than 10%, I would argue.
Tree
Making that.
is the skate
Everyone, the public has to understand, this is a lottery. We're applying for a $200,000 grant to make improvements to one of our parks. Maybe we'll get the money, maybe we won't get the money. There is no schematics, engineering drawings, or anything else on any of the items we might use this grant money for. And anything to the contrary, frankly, is misleading. Maybe we'll get this money, maybe we won't.
Yes.
If we do get the money, we'll figure out whether we put up planters or a skate park or a bathroom. We don't know.
Did we submit, Jim, this is a question for Jimmy. When
Go
we
ahead, Jim.
submitted it, a letter of intent, did we attach the drawing that was proposed last time?
Oh, go ahead, please.
Yes, to my knowledge, yes. And then also on the call, we have 2 members from Colliers Engineering's office that submitted the grant. So they'd be able to answer some of those specifics, but to my knowledge, yes, because it was supplied to them with information.
So again, Mayor, we submitted a letter of intent showing a skate park on our pool property.
Right, and so you can want to keep focusing on that. You're completely misleading the public. Okay.
I disagree with you. I think you're
That's not-
misleading the public
I'm not
on this.
misleading the public at all. It's a $200,000 lottery request from the county. So now
Which-
it's public's time to speak. Omar, is anyone out there who would like to speak?
Not a lottery to do anything. Lottery to do the.
I see no hands from the public, Mayor, but I do have Jeannie Swift and also Kelsey Howard from Mazer, or I'm sorry, from Callier. Yes.
Okay, so.
Hi, good evening.
Kelsey?
We do have some details on the project to discuss, and Janine Swift on my team will go over that. We did submit a letter of intent to the program. That was preliminary details on the project that was under consideration. And now we are
Perfect.
preparing the grant application for the May 6th deadline, which this public hearing is part of the requirement for the deadline and the resolution that is on the agenda as well. So I'll turn it over to Janine and she will go over the scope and details of the project. And
Okay.
again,
Just say- can I just
yes,
stop for
to
a second?
clarify that it is just a grant application. The scope can be modified once you're alerted to the award amount if an award is made.
Okay, all right, thank you. You have a question? Yes.
I would like to just make it a point that the council is getting the expertise of our engineer at the 11th hour. This should have been done weeks ago when we were discussing the grant opportunities and what should go where. This is not the way we've done grants before. We're supposedly on the eve of passing a resolution or ordinance here and first talking to our engineers. Again, this was not handled well. And yes, our letter of intent says a skate park.
Is this the first time we've spoken to the engineers?
On this, yes.
Is this the first time?
Yes.
No, they were given the grant, they were given the information in line with submission of the letter of interest.
When?
As soon as the next day that it was the resolution.
When did Major come and talk to us about this particular proposal for this grant? Tonight.
September 17, 2021, when they.
Again, this wasn't pitched as the proposal in
That was
September
the
of
active
2021.
And JD permits this
Right,
project.
right. Okay, so is there anyone else from Mazer who would like to weigh in?
Yes, this is Janine Swift from.
Hey, Janine.
Hello, nice to meet you all virtually. Yep, this is Janine Swift from Colliers, formerly Mazer. So I'm just going to go over brief details of the grant application and the proposed project. So this public hearing was advertised as a display ad and a legal ad in the Bergen Record on April 26th of this year. And again, this is for the Bergen County 2022 Municipal Park Improvement Grant. The deadline, as Kelsey said, was May 6th. The program provides matching grants for the development and redevelopment of municipal parkland. And the goals include increasing and improving outdoor, active, and passive recreational activities. The project location, as we've sort of been discussing here, is the Tenafly Swim Club property, and that is located at 147 Grove Street, identified as Block 1210 and Lot 7. This property is owned by the Borough of Tenafly. The proposed project scope includes various improvements to the Tenafly Swim Club property. And that scope includes installing security cameras, installing 2 drinking water fountains / filling stations, installing ADA raised flower beds for the garden club, reconstructing walkways, installing fencing, installing a pollinator garden, installing a wildlife viewing area, installing a skate park, renovating the existing restrooms, and demolishing the existing pump house and kiddie pool, which is unused. The grant request and project cost. So this is a matching grant. The total project cost is $398,475. And this is a 50-50 matching grant. So we will request from the county $199,237, and the required matching funds to be provided by the borough would be the same, $199,237. And that concludes my talking points here.
Ms. Swift, just so I'm clear, because I'm getting the question already. Hi, this is Julie O'Connor. I'm on the council. I just, if the cost of the project is more, it can be adjusted, correct?
Yes, so the anticipated award date would be November of this year. And at that time, if awarded, the borough can negotiate a bit with the county, depending on how much money the county grants the borough, depending on any comments they may have on the scope or the eligibility of the scope. And that would be done before the grant agreement would be executed. And so scope changes would be discussed at that time with the county. And scope changes can be made just through a simple process of discussing with the county.
Okay, thank you, because there's just a concern that if this, if the 400,000 was less than the entire, and I know it's a matching grant, which is why we wanted to get it in, but
Right.
if it ended up costing more, that was just a concern that we can in fact change it, right?
Yes.
I'll jump in.
You can
So,
scale down this.
oftentimes you might not be awarded the full requested amount. So at that point, that's even more of an opportunity to tell the county that due to the less than requested grant amount, you'd like to revise the scope. So that is an opportunity to revise the scope.
Quick question. So if the county actually gave us this grant and lowered the number, could the council reject the grant?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Any other questions from the council members for Colliers? Lauren?
Sure. This is to my council, and Adam's laughing, but I am just beside myself on this one. To encumber this piece of property, we have such few municipal properties in our community. To encumber this piece of property without going through the public, without actually having city planning, without looking at a larger use of the property, without looking at recreational needs, active needs, not just passive. I'm glad we're getting more trees, but we have a beautiful nature center of 400 acres of trees. To have such a limited use for such few residents, I implore my council to reconsider this. It's so short-sighted. It's such poor city planning on behalf of our larger community and our residents. Obviously, I'm voting no on this grant because this is getting thrown to us at the nth hour without any real vetting. It wasn't appropriately vetted. And I thank Mazer for their time, but truthfully, we could do so much better for our residents. I don't know, again, of any resident who's begging me for a skate park, but I know of 1,000 families who are begging me for a basketball court and 500 plus families begging me for a baseball field. Again, we have limited open space. We have limited land that we own. This is incredibly short-sighted.
So you'd be okay if we put a baseball field there?
100%.
Good. Maybe we'll put a baseball field there if we win the grant.
So I just
Julie, go
wanted to, I just wanted to say that as council
that.
people, we all hear from many residents, and I have heard from many people who use the dog park since it went up, that they want functioning bathrooms there and they want running water. I've also heard from many residents who are involved in the garden club that they want ADA compliant flower beds because Tenafly has zero. You have no ability to be a gardener if you have a wheelchair. This would be the town's first one. I've also heard from many residents who would like the skate park closer to where the schools are, and it's a multi-use park, and that would remove it from the lovely restoration work that was done at Roosevelt Commons. So we all hear from different residents. I think this is a tremendous opportunity to have a multi-generational and multi-use space. And I'm very proud that we're actually going to be able to use this opportunity of a matching grant, just like we had in Walnut Park, just like we had in Oresco, and many other things that we have provided for the community where we've gotten matching funds from the county. So that's the opportunity we're taking advantage of. And I certainly hope that it can be as funded as possible because it will be a tremendous advantage to our community.
Okay, any other questions from the council? All right. Julie, would you like to make the motion, please?
I move to adopt resolution 22-149.
Second.
Have a second?
Second.
Go ahead. Omar, can you please read the roll? Call the roll?
Councilmember Dayton?
No.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Menon?
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels?
No.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Okay, in the interest of time, because we have a robust closed session we have to get to, I'm going to skip over committee reports and move them to the next meeting, Omar.
Okay. I'll mark that.
All right, okay.
And I just make sure everyone knows to get their nature center dinner tickets, please, May 15th.
Okay, hold on a second. We're going to start with ordinance 2208. Okay. Councilman Michaels, would you like to make the motion, please?
I move to pass and adopt on second and final reading ordinance 22-07 and that notice. of
No,
same-
wait. No. It's 2208. Take your time. It's the first
Sorry.
reading.
I move to introduce on first reading ordinance 22-08 and set the hearing for May 10th, 2022 at 8 p.m. or soon thereafter in the Tenafly Municipal Center.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Omar, could you read the title of the ordinance and conduct a roll call, please?
Sure. Ordinance number 22-08, calendar year 2022, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
No.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Okay, next item on the agenda, R 22-150, introduced 2022 municipal budget. I'm going to go in order here. Banu, would you like to make a motion, please?
I move to adopt resolution number 22-150, which introduces the 2022 municipal budget and set the hearing for May 24th, 2022 at 8 p.m. or as soon thereafter in the council chambers of the Tenafly Municipal Center for the hearing on the adoption of the 2022 municipal budget.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Omar, can you please conduct a roll call?
Councilmember Dayton?
This is the first reading, right? Just confirming.
Yes, it's introduction.
Got it. Yes, and I hope that during the time between this resolution reading and the next, we can figure out the American Rescue Funds.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Okay, the next is we're adding a resolution for charging stations, R 22-151. Julie, would you actually,
Wait, where is that?
you don't have it?
Where is that?
It isn't, we're adding it to the resolutions.
Oh.
So you can use the same language from just the most recent resolution that was introduced. So Dan, do you want to read that one, please?
I move to introduce resolution 22-151. Where's the rest? What's the rest of the line? And set the hearing for May 10th.
It's to authorize the engineers to submit the grant application for the EV charging stations.
A second.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay. Omar, can you conduct a roll call, please?
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Okay, for mayor's remarks, I'm going to read the Arbor Day Foundation proclamation. Whereas the last Friday of April 29th, 2022 is designated as National Arbor Day, which is a day set aside to promote the planting of trees, tree conservancy, and appreciation of our environment. And whereas the Borough of Tenafly has promoted tree conservancy and planting for many years, and whereas trees in our community increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our borough, and whereas the Borough of Tenafly has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the Borough of Tenafly do proclaim April 29th, 2022 as Arbor Day and urge all citizens to celebrate this day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're going to go into closed session. Do you want to read the closed session language, Counselor?
Sure. So it's resolution R22-152 at a special meeting, at meeting of mayor and council of the Borough of Tenafly, County of Bergen, New Jersey, held on April 26, 2022. The mayor and council of the Borough of Tenafly has deemed it necessary to go into closed session to discuss certain matters which are exempted from the public. Be it resolved that in compliance with NJSA 10:4-12, the mayor and the council of the Borough of Tenafly are going to close executive session to discuss collective bargaining agreement, potential litigation, and contract negotiations. Minutes will be taken at the meeting and released to the public at the time the matter is resolved.
Could I have a motion to go into close, please?
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, members of the public, for hanging on. This concludes the public portion of tonight's.